Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to CAD Lab. In this video, we are going to discuss the remaining features, options of the whole feature. So I have a rectangular block and I will place a whole feature on that. So this is the edit menu. So you have to select the whole feature and then you have to select a surface for the placement of that hole. You can pick any surface, by just clicking on that particular surface. So it will simply place the whole feature on that particular reference that you have selected. And then of course you have to define the references for the placement also. So these are the two green check marks, and now we will be able to dimension this hole from the left side and from the bottom side. So suppose the distance from that particular edge is let it be 50 units, and from the bottom suppose it is 60 units. So it will always stay at that particular location, no matter what dimensions of the block is. So if I simply click on the green check mark button, so it will place that whole feature. Now later on, suppose I double click on this feature part, and I suppose change the dimension from 240 of its length to suppose 600. So what normally happens that it will update that entity. What about that whole feature? So if I regenerate that, the whole feature will remain at this particular location because we have referenced this hole from this side. Suppose I go back to, I undo this, I go back to the definition mode of the whole, edit definition. So procedure is the same. If you want to edit something, the definition of something, so simply right click on that particular feature in the model tree and then choose the edit definition. I will grab this green check mark and we'll reference this, let us say from this edge or from this face. So if I reference it from this edge and change this dimension, let us say to 50 units again from that side. So now I have referenced this hole horizontally from this side. This is the opposite side of the rectangle. So if you want to change this dimension, so this side is going to be affected. So now if I double click on that, I change this dimension to, for example, 500 units, the whole I regenerated, so the whole feature will move along that particular edge. So this is how these parameters will come into action when you reference any feature with an edge or with a point or with any reference. So you have to take care of these things. So let us go back to the definition, that definition of the whole feature. So we have placed the hole on that particular surface. We have the reference definitions. You can look for the shape. So you can change the depth, let it be 50 units depth. You can change the diameter, for example 30 units. So this is right now the location and cross section of the feature. These options we had already discussed in the previous video. So the first option, which was the cylindrical one. So if you pick the cylindrical option, so in the cylindrical you can use the flat end option. If you remember this, I can use for the conical section, and within the conical section, then I can use either the counter bore option, this one, or the countersink option. And you can change the parameters of these. And we had only used the blind depth option, in which a specific value, numeric value, will be entered over here, and it will become the total depth of the hole. The next option is the standard hole option. So if you want to create a standard hole option for some standard screw, so that data is available. So if I click on that, so first you have to select that specific standard. UNF का स्टैंडर्ड आपने यूज़ करना है, या ISO का आपने करना है, या UNC का आपने करना है. So for example, if I want to use the ISO standard, so next to that tab is the the sizes that are available in that particular standard. So ISO जो है वो normally metric system में काम करता है. So these dimensions are in millimeters. So 1.4 means 1.4 into 3 जो है वो आपका जो thread की definition होती है. It is the total height of the and depth of the hole and diameter. So these are in millimeter. If I, let us say, pick the largest one, which is maybe M68 by 6, so the total depth of this particular screw, standard screw, is 7.32 millimeters. So, and here is the cross section of that particular standard that we have picked. यहाँ पे हमारे पास दो सब ऑप्शंस हैं. I can use the taping option. So because we are creating a hole for a threaded screw, so definitely the hole will also have internal threads. So अगर वो आप शो करना चाहते हैं होल्स पे, वो डायमेंशन आप इंक्लूड करना चाहते हैं, सो यू कैन यूज दैट ऑप्शन. अदरवाइज यू कैन डीएक्टिवेट दैट. सो यू विल गेट अ सिंपल होल of that particular size, but the threads dimensions will not be available to you. So if you want to include those dimensions also, so you have to pick the thread option. And similarly, if you want to make an angular hole, tapered hole, so you can use the tapered option also. यहाँ पे उसके साइजेस जो आपके पास आ जाएंगे अगर टेपर्ड स्क्रू आप यूज़ करना चाहते हैं. सो दीज आर द साइजेस विद रेफरेंस टू द टेपर्ड स्क्रूज. सो अगर ये आप इनएक्टिव करते हैं, तो आपके पास जो स्टैंडर्ड सिलेंड्रिकल स्क्रूज हैं वो डायमेंशंस आपके पास आ जाएंगे. सो द सेकंड ऑप्शन इज़ द सिंपलेस्ट वन, in which simply you have to select any standard, and then you will take a standard size screw, and automatically it will generate that particular hole feature. So suppose if I go back to ISO, और यहाँ पे मैं जो M68/6 वाला ऑप्शन था वो सेलेक्ट करूँ, so that size is very small because we are working in the millimeter system. अगर इंच सिस्टम में होता तो वो फिर फिजिकली नज़र आता. So as the dimensions of the workpiece are very much at the higher end, इसका लेंथ अगर आपको याद हो तकरीबन 300 यूनिट्स था. So 300 units by 200 something, and the size of that screw is only 7 units. So physically we are not able to see the cross section of that hole. So, but if we zoom into that particular area, so you you will see that actually the hole exists in that particular area. And this is the total depth that I was talking about 7.32 और ये डेप्थ जो है वो वही आप इसमें अगर आप ये इंक्लूड करना चाहते हैं जो कॉनिकल हाइट है सो टोटल डेप्थ फिर आपकी 8.05 होगी इफ़ यू वांट टू एक्सक्लूड दैट if you want to only dimension the hole up to that particular area so वो फिर आप यहाँ पे define करेंगे so these are different options that you can use basically so it is the simplest one simply you have to select a standard and then you have to give the size of the screen automatically it will generate that hole इस पर अगर आप फिर वीव करेंगे so actually that hole will be present so this is the standard option so you have two options basically standard hole option and the simple cylindrical hole option within the simple cylindrical hole option we have further the flat and the conical end options and then within the conical option we have these counter bore operation and counter sinking operation options. In addition to these options, we do have another icon over there in the dashboard and it is this one which is exactly the same as that of this sketcher option. So the sketcher is also available within the whole feature. So this means that we can make a hole with our own cross-sectional dimensions and cross-sectional shape. सो अगर फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल आपने कोई कस्टमाइज्ड होल जो है वो आपने जनरेट करना हो किसी भी ऑब्जेक्ट में लेट अस से एट दिस लोकेशन फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल तो सिंपली क्लिक ऑन द स्केच मेनू सो स्केचर पे जब आप क्लिक करेंगे सो इफ़ यू ऑलरेडी हैव a sketch that has been generated within the sketch module or वो आपने सेव किया हुआ है तो simply you can click on the open icon and it will take you to the working directory and from there you can open that particular sketch. Otherwise you have a sub sketch tab available and this is for activating the sketcher menu, the sub sketch menu within the whole command. So right now we are in the whole command and within the whole command we can use the sketch option. So if I click on the sketch and then within the sketch if I click on the sketch tab so it will take you to sketcher mode where you can sketch your own whole feature and then that will be added as a sub feature on that particular part. So let me make some cross section. For example, if I pick a line and suppose I make any cross, like for example, let me make some steps. So it basically acts as a revolving feature because hole is a cylindrical feature and for generating a cylindrical feature you must revolve a sketch around an axis. So this is, let us say, that sketch that I want to use for a revolution. So that will become the profile of my hole. So this is a closed feature again and this internal cross-sectional area will be basically removed from the part and you will get a cylindrical hole-like construction. So if at this particular stage I click on the check mark button, done button, so it will give you the error message. The section is incomplete for reasons listed in the message area. And if you look into the dashboard, so it is asking for the axis of revolution. So as I said that you are making this particular profile for the whole feature, and whole is basically a cylindrical object. So you will have to basically revolve that profile around the axis to get a cylindrical cross-sectional area. So we have not yet defined any axis for this profile. So that is why it is giving that error. So exact sketcher, I will click on the no option, and then within the line commands, I have the center line options also, geometry center line. So if I click on that and I, let us say, take this as my axis of revolution. So I will have no empty spaces in between the axis and the profile. So उसका जो end line है उसी पे मैंने axis draw कर दिया. And now if I click on the check mark button, so it will accept that and it will place that particular cross section. Now if I want to look in the cross section, so basically ये वो आपका whole feature है जो कि इस एक्सेस पे रिवॉल्व होके ऑब्जेक्ट से आपका रिमूव हो गया है. सो दिस इज हाउ यू कैन मेक holes of your own cross sections. So again, it is a simple option, but it needs some practice to sketch different entities and then revolving that entities along the axes. So we will also cover the revolve command in the next video. So we will discuss that in detail. However, within the whole option, you can use the sketch, और जब sketch में आप फिर जाएंगे, so you have to define a closed profile, and that closed profile will be revolved around an axis. Okay, so that's it. So let me use okay. So some more options that are available in the whole is about the depths. Okay. So we have covered the placement, the shape tab, but we haven't yet discussed those options which are available to you within the depth tab. Okay. So we have only used the first option, that is the blind depth option. So this is the same as that we did in extrude command, the symmetric option. So half of the whole feature will be generated on one side of the face that you have selected. For example, अगर top face पे आपने select किया हुआ है, so half whole will be generated on one side of the face, half to the other side. And this can be useful if you have, let us say, two bodies and you have some common surface in between the two bodies, and you want to generate a hole on both the 2D objects, so you can use the symmetric option. Otherwise, you can use some other options. So these 4 different options are available. So let me explain them through another figure so that you can easily get the idea. So I will undo all the options. I will set the orientation to isometric view, standard view. So let me create a sketch. I will again select the front plane as the sketching plane and right orientation. Let me make some simple figures. So I will create only rectangles, multiple rectangles. I have this clove feature. I will turn off the planes and now I will extrude this sketch irrespective of the other dimension. Let me change this extrusion depth to smaller value. 100 units. So now I have an object in which I have multiple edges and multiple surfaces. So I can use the hole feature or the extrude feature or the cut feature. Uh, those depth options remains the same for all the commands. So instead of hole, we can use a cut feature as well. So suppose if I click on again the sketcher and I make some sketch on that particular surface, for example a circle. Okay. And if I extrude that, let us say to the other direction, and I suppose click on this remove material option. So it will be removed. So whole में भी यही होगा अगर आप ये option जो है वो use करते हैं. So now let us use those depths options over here. So the first option is the depth option. So depth option may you will give any depth and up to that depth, for example, if I give a depth of 150 units, so it will extrude that feature up to 150 units and it will be removed. So that will be the resultant. So if you look into the other side of the surface, so it is somewhere in between that particular area. The next option, so this is the blind depth option. Next option is the symmetric one. Symmetric, already we have covered that. So again, it is the blind depth option, but half of the depth will be to one side, half to the other side of the working plane, up to the sketching plane. Similarly, next option is up to the first available surface. So these bottom lines basically represents multiple surfaces, and vertical line represent the depth or the height of cut or extrusion, या अगर whole feature है तो वो whole की depth जो है वो represent करेगा. So you can see that those vertical lines are extended up to the first available line. This first available line means the first available surface. So for example, if this is your sketching plane, so let me first shift it to the switch it to the blind depth option, जो कि यहाँ तक है. And now instead of the blind depth, if I click on the first available surface option over here, so what is the first available surface? It is the opposite side of this particular region. This is the first available surface which comes into the extrusion direction of this particular feature. So अगर इसको आप weave करते हैं, ठीक है ना, so the generation will be only up to the opposite face. So this is the first face option. First available surface will always be the opposite surface or plane of that particular region upon which you have that particular feature, चाहे वो whole feature हो या कोई extruded feature हो. The next option is the through all option. So you can see that the vertical lines are passing through all the surfaces, all the horizontal lines. So the generation will be up to that particular surface, because so it will pass basically through all the surfaces. So through all का अगर मैं option select करता हूँ and I click on the OK button, so it will be through all the surfaces. Similarly, the next option is the edge with selected surfaces or selected edges. So here you will select a surface, and in this option you can select an edge. So those separate options are, for example, surface का option अगर मैं select करता हूँ, so when you click on any surface, so the extrusion will be up to that particular surface. So इस केस में आपका एक्सट्रूजन जो होगा वो इस सरफेस तक होगा. सो अगर मैं क्लिक करता हूँ, so the material will be removed from this region, and as I have selected this surface, so the extrusion is up to that particular surface. अगर मैं फॉर एग्जांपल ये अपोजिट सेलेक्ट करता हूँ फेस, blind depth में, if I select this surface, so now extrusion will be up to that particular mode. Okay? So similarly, you can pick, instead of a surface, you can pick an edge or a point. So if, let us say, I pick this particular edge, so it will be up to that particular. Similarly, if I pick a point, if I take, let us say, this corner point, so this edge will be selected and extrusion will be up to that particular edge. So if I pick, let us say, this point, so it will be up to that particular point. और यहाँ तक आपकी जनरेशन जो है वो हो जाएगी, and it will be removed. So it is again a simple option that you can use. So ये बेसिकली होल्स के ही रेफरेंस से मैंने आपको बताया, लेकिन थ्रू कट ऑपरेशन के थ्रू. सो यही प्रोसीजर जो है वो आप अडॉप्ट कर सकते हैं. इंस्टेड ऑफ कट, फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ आई गो फॉर द होल ऑप्शन for the placement, if I select this face, and let us say this is my horizontal reference, and I take this as the vertical reference, and instead of the blind depth option, if I select the through all option, so the hole will pass through all the surfaces. Similarly, if I pick the surface option and pick any surface, so generation will be up to that particular surface. For example, अगर मैं ये surface select करता हूँ, so the whole feature will be up to that particular surface. And similarly, instead of surface, I can go for the edge. So if I pick this edge, so the whole feature will be up to that particular edge. So in the edge option, you can pick a point or you can pick any edge. For example, if I take this edge, so it will be the reference. If I take this point, so the same will be the reference. If I take, let us say, this point, so this edge will be the reference. So this is how you can use those sub options of the depth. So I hope you will now properly understand the depth options that will be normally available to you, and you will use the extrude command or cut command or the whole features, and maybe some of the other commands. So that's it. Inshallah, in the next class, in the next video, we will cover some more commands of the protrusion and the edit menu.